My name is Adeline. I'm 32 years old, living in Chicago and working as an accountant. My job isn't anything extraordinary, just numbers, invoices, and ledgers repeating day after day. But that evening, after a shift that lasted nearly 10 hours, I came home to my small apartment, hoping for a little peace and an early night's sleep. And then I froze right at the doorstep. On the thin layer of snow, in the biting cold of January, a little girl about 2 years old sat shivering, dressed only in a diaper and a short-sleeved t-shirt. Her lips were purple, her tiny hands trembling, her eyes swollen from crying. Pasted on her shirt with clear tape was a note. "The kid is your responsibility. Have fun. Kayla." Kayla is my older sister. She was far too used to dumping her child on me at any time of day. But she abandoned her. No warning, no phone call, not even asking if I was home. When I scooped up the child's freezing body into my arms, my heart pounded as if something inside me had just collapsed. Have you ever been turned into a replacement by your own family? Exploited under the excuse of being family? If this story hits you in the chest, leave a comment below and share what you've been through. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can walk together to the very end of this family story, because what you're about to hear is only the beginning. I hurriedly shut the door, knelt on the floor, and held the little girl tight. Her body was cold as stone, skin cracked and dry, her tiny hands still clutching the note scrawled in Kayla's handwriting. Emma. Her name was Emma, my sister's only daughter. My hands trembled as I peeled the note off her shirt, my throat tightening. The apartment was silent, except for the whistling wind through the window frame and the ragged breathing of a child who had just gone through something no child should ever endure. I turned on the heater, wrapped Emma in an old blanket, and wiped her body with warm water. She was filthy, her skin raw on both sides of her hips, red and bleeding from diaper rash. I opened the cabinet and found the jar of baby lotion I had stocked up on, because I had grown used to this. So used to it that I no longer even reacted when Kayla suddenly dropped Emma at my place and vanished for the whole day. But tonight, this was too much. Emma drifted off on the couch after finishing the bottle of formula I mixed from the last powder left in the jar. I sat down on the floor, my back against the wall, unable to take my eyes off her small face still flushed from the cold. A part of me wanted to cry, but I had long since forgotten how. I'm the second child in the family. Back when I was in high school, Kayla had already dropped out to chase what my mother called a free life. Freedom to live as you want. That's what she said. Meanwhile, once I graduated college and landed a steady accounting job, I automatically became the second pillar of the family, right alongside my mother. Kayla never held a stable job. Sometimes she waited tables, sometimes she worked at a nail salon, other times she lived off the allowance of a boyfriend my mom always praised as seeming decent. Kayla had an apartment about 3 blocks from mine, but the time she actually spent there could be counted on one hand. I still remember my 30th birthday. I had reserved a table at a little Italian restaurant I loved. Andrew, my boyfriend at the time, ordered a special cake with my picture and a sweet message. We'd only been dating 6 months, and I truly hoped that night would be perfect. But just 1 hour before, Kayla texted, "Emma has a slight fever. I've got an emergency. You take her. Thanks." No prior notice, no asking if I was free, no thought that it was my birthday. I almost didn't answer. But then Mom called. "Adeline, you're her aunt. If you don't watch her, who will? Kayla is busy. Family. Has to think of each other." I'd heard that line so many times I was sick of it. So I stayed home with Emma while Kayla posted spa photos on her story just 20 minutes later. No sign of any emergency. And Mom stayed silent as always, as if I should be grateful for the privilege of doing it. I never hated Emma. She was a sweet, bright child, and even at 2 years old, she already knew who was always there when she needed someone. When I held her, she never struggled. She rested her head on my shoulder as if it was the only safe place in the world. But love for a child cannot be the excuse for adults to exploit. I was exhausted. Every time Mom called, her voice soft as clouds but heavy as stone. Adeline, you live alone, no burden. Kayla has it harder, you should help her a little. Harder? A woman who had time to go to Vegas on weekends, shop designer clothes, switch boyfriends like changing shoes, she was hard-pressed. And me working overtime to pay the electric bill, not daring to book a flight to Andrew's hometown because I had to buy formula for my sister's child. What was I, a machine? Emma whimpered in her sleep, hands flailing as if still afraid of something. I leaned down, soothing her, my hand rubbing gently along her back. On her wrist was a faint bluish bruise I'd never seen before. I froze. I had seen these marks before. Not on Emma, on me. When I was little, when Dad was still alive, when Mom was still a woman who raised her hand instead of raising her voice. Kayla doesn't remember that, but I do. I stood up and reached for my phone. I meant to call Kayla, not to scold, but to ask if she was still in her right mind. But the last message from her was still the note taped to Emma's shirt. No new texts, no missed calls. Then I pulled up the footage from the security camera I had installed 3 months earlier after someone tried using an old key to open my door at night. Mom denied it. Kayla swore it wasn't her. Still, I changed the locks and added a camera. I rewound to about 40 minutes earlier. Kayla appeared at 7:42 p.m., wearing a tight dress, her hair curled in waves, bright red high heels. She carried Emma like a grocery bag, set her down on the freezing steps, taped the note to her shirt, and walked quickly back to her car. No looking back, no knocking, no checking if I was home. 18 seconds. That's all it took to throw away motherhood. I didn't call her. I called somewhere else. A call my mom and Kayla never thought I would dare make. I pressed the number, took a deep breath, and when the voice answered, "Chicago Child Protective Services, how can I help you?" I spoke. "My name is Adeline Walker. I need to report a case of child abandonment." When I hung up after the call with CPS, a strange feeling filled my chest. Not relief, not exactly fear. It was like stepping onto a threshold I could never go back from. Emma was still asleep, her face calm under the warm blanket. I couldn't sleep. I sat by her side, my eyes fixed on the small bruise on her wrist, my mind repeating the same question: what really happened to her? The next morning, before sunrise, I logged into my laptop and filed an emergency leave request. Less than 10 minutes later, CPS called back. They asked for my address, Emma's condition, details about the family, and my relationship to the mother. I answered everything, each word like a needle stitching through old wounds. CPS sent an agent to my apartment close to 8 a.m. Her name was Margaret, around 50, hair tied back, face stern but not cold. When I opened the door, she looked at Emma for a long moment, then asked softly, "Has she had breakfast yet?" I nodded, bringing her inside. Emma hid in my arms when she saw the stranger, clutching my neck tighter. Margaret looked around, taking notes on a clipboard. She asked about Emma's medical history. I handed over what I had: formula, diapers, rash cream, and a small box filled with receipts for things I had bought on Kayla's behalf for the past 2 years. The only thing I couldn't give her was the one thing Kayla should have had: a mother's heart. Margaret examined the bruise, noted the printed camera photos I'd prepared. She didn't say much, just asked precise questions and listened. I told her everything from last night to the countless times no one else witnessed. "Has your sister ever left the child without warning?" I think those times outnumber the times she asked first. "Has she ever abandoned the child in public places?" Yes, she once brought her to my workplace. I was in a meeting with important clients when reception called to say it was urgent. I ran out and saw Kayla in the hallway, sunglasses on, phone in hand, making a nail appointment. Margaret paused, frowning. "And she left the baby there?" "Yes." She shoved a bottle into my hand and walked away, saying I should know my places because family has to help. I didn't exaggerate. If anything, I left things out. Like Lily's wedding, my closest friend from college. I was maid of honor. The ceremony was in a small chapel outside the city, everything perfect. I was ready with my bouquet when I heard a child crying from the parking lot. Everyone turned. I ran out. Emma lay in a stroller, face red from screaming. Kayla stood nearby, chewing gum, texting. I froze. What are you doing here? I've got dinner plans. Stop by on the way. You're free, aren't you? No big deal. Then she shoved a note into my hand. Feed her at 3:30. Deepers are your problem. I'm busy. She walked away like it was normal. And I spent Lily's vows in the bathroom, rocking a crying toddler under the cold fluorescent lights, hearing muffled wedding music through the walls. Margaret was silent for a long time. Then she asked, "Does your mother Diane know about this?" I think she knows, but she always tells me to forgive Kayla. That being a single mom is hard, that I live alone, I can shoulder it. Have you ever seen anyone in the family hurt the child? Not with my own eyes. But Emma startles whenever an adult comes near. She panics if someone raises their voice. And those bruises, they're not from accidents. Margaret nodded, writing carefully. She didn't say if she believed me. But in the way she lifted Emma afterward, gently, carefully, reverently, I felt an unspoken understanding. She told me to prepare Emma's essentials, only what was needed. You'll be contacted for more testimony later. Right now, we need to place her in temporary care. I wanted to ask, does that mean I can't keep her? But I stayed quiet. I had no rights, no legal papers. I wasn't the guardian. I was just the one Kayla had decided was available. When Margaret carried Emma to the door, the little girl turned her head back, reaching for me, whispering, "Adi." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Be good, Emma. I won't let anyone hurt you." The door closed behind them, leaving a hollow space inside me, like a fire burning quietly for years finally found air. Not anger. Resolve. I had lived too long as the obedient younger sister. Now there was no going back. I hadn't even recovered from watching Emma taken away when something else rolled in like an undertow, silent but devastating. Andrew and I had been together for almost 3 years. He was an architect living in New York. We met at an urban design seminar, and our relationship grew slowly, steadily, like something built to last. Not rushed, but certain. Living in 2 cities made everything difficult. He flew to Chicago a few times a year, while I never once had the chance to visit New York. Every time I thought about booking a flight, I was pulled back by the invisible weight of Kayla and Emma. But this time I had prepared. I started saving money 6 months earlier, cutting back on everything from morning coffee to new office dresses. I worked overtime, took freelance jobs on weekends, even sold a few pieces of jewelry my mother had left me. Andrew booked my ticket, sent me the itinerary, and planned out each day I would be there. He wanted to take me to see the buildings he had designed, visit the architecture museum, and have dinner by the Hudson River. The trip was set for a week, right at Christmas. I didn't tell anyone in my family until our monthly family dinner, the one my mother hosted faithfully on the second weekend of each month. Everyone showed up, even Kayla, though she was almost an hour late and dressed like she had just come from a party. I waited until dessert to speak. When the conversation had finally slowed from small talk about rent, gas prices, and TV shows, I gathered my courage and said, "I'll be flying to New York on the 23rd. I've booked the ticket, taken time off work, and I'll be staying with Andrew for a week." No one spoke for several seconds. I saw my mother pause with her spoon, her eyes narrowing. Kayla smirked. "What a coincidence. I just booked a trip to Cancun with my friends, also on the 23rd. So, are you canceling yours?" I frowned. "Why should I cancel? I've planned this for months. I'm not rearranging my life for you." Kayla shrugged, pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and held the screen up for the table to see. See, non-refundable. That means someone's going to have to watch Emma for me. And you don't have anything that important you can't put aside for family, right? My hands clenched tight under the table. "You're wrong. I can't. I've sacrificed enough. I'm not missing this trip." My mother sighed. Adeline, don't be so stubborn. Kayla needs a break. You don't have kids, you don't have a family of your own. You can go to New York anytime. Why does everyone always act like I have nothing to lose? My voice shook with anger. I have a boyfriend. I have a life. I have plans. I deserve choices too. I don't always have to pay the price for someone else. No one answered. Only the clinking of forks against porcelain filled the silence. I left the table without another word. By the time I got home, the icy wind stung my face like needles. I packed carefully, folding the coats and scarves Andrew had sent from New York. I planned to get to the airport early, avoiding any complications. But at 4:47 a.m., I was jolted awake by the piercing cry of a child echoing through the hallway. It was sharp, panicked, the sound of someone abandoned. I jumped out of bed barefoot, heart racing, and looked through the peephole. Emma. She sat curled on the doorstep, wearing only a diaper and a faded t-shirt with a rabbit print. Her face flushed red from crying, her little legs turning purple from the cold. On her chest was the same crumpled note. The kid is your responsibility. Have fun. Kayla. I threw the door open and scooped her up. Her skin was icy, almost lifeless. I wasn't sure she could even feel anything anymore. I called Andrew immediately. You're not at the airport yet, are you? I'm on my way. What's wrong? I can't fly this morning. Emma's here. Kayla left her outside my door in this freezing cold. I can't leave her like this. Andrew was silent for a few seconds, then spoke quickly. I'm turning around. I'll book a flight to Chicago right now. Send me your exact address. You're not alone. Less than 10 minutes later, he sent me the confirmation for a 10 o'clock flight. I held Emma close, trying to warm her with my own body. Outside the window, the sky was still dark. I sat there, trembling in the cold, listening to the fragile breaths of a child who had never truly been loved. I didn't cry. I was past tears. What I felt was a cold clarity, the kind that comes when you've watched the last boundary get shattered. And I began to see what I hadn't dared to admit before. Kayla wasn't careless. She was dangerous. After Andrew texted that he had switched flights and was on his way to the airport, I set the phone down and pulled up the footage from the camera outside my door. I needed proof. Someone had to see what I saw. The video showed Kayla stepping out of her car at 4:31 a.m. The streetlight hit her face, fully made up, hair neatly curled, bright red high heels clicking on the pavement like a runway. She carried Emma, who was half asleep, head slumped to the side. Kayla set her down, smoothed her shirt, and taped the note to her chest. Then, without a glance back, she turned and walked quickly to her car. No knock, no phone call, nothing. I printed 3 still frames, one with Kayla's face, one of her taping the note, and one of her walking away. I clipped them into a folder and called Margaret, the CPS worker I had met. Hello, Ms. Walker. Has something new happened? Yes. I need to send you footage showing Kayla abandoning Emma outside in the cold. I don't know if she would have survived if I hadn't been home. I've printed the photos and can send the full video by email or USB. Margaret was quiet for a moment. I'll send someone to collect the evidence. We'll begin the emergency intervention process. Less than 2 hours later, a silver car pulled up. A new worker, Daniel, about 40, calm but focused, showed his ID, took the folder, and asked me to file a detailed statement. Just as I signed, Emma stirred, crying softly in my arms. She didn't resist, too weak even to push away. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. I've been doing this for 13 years. But every time I see a child abandoned in the cold like this, it still hurts like the first day. He didn't say more. He pulled a fresh blanket from the car, wrapped Emma in it, and lifted her gently. We'll take her to a safe place. We have pediatric doctors available 24/7. You can rest assured. I stood still as the car door shut, my chest torn in two. I wanted to keep Emma, but I wasn't her mother. I had no rights. I was only the one who hadn't looked away when a child was thrown aside. That afternoon, as I tried to straighten the apartment, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera and my throat tightened. Kayla. Her dyed brown hair was tied back hastily, her face bare, oversized sunglasses covering her eyes despite the cloudy weather. Beside her was my mother, Diane, arms crossed, wearing her worn flats dusted with dirt. I cracked the door open, standing firmly in the frame. Kayla lunged forward immediately. Are you insane, Adeline? You called CPS? Who do you think you are, trying to steal my kid? I didn't answer, only held the door tighter. My mother pushed forward, her voice sharp. I can't believe you'd do this to your own sister. Kayla just needed a few days away, the child's fine. Kids can handle a little cold. You two were the same when you were little. Heat flushed through me. It was 20 degrees outside. Do you know Emma could have stopped breathing if she'd been out there 15 more minutes? Did you even see the bruise on her arm? I've stayed quiet too long, Kayla screamed. That bruise was from a fall. What do you know? You sit in an office all day and judge. I opened the laptop sitting by the door, turned the screen toward them, and hit play. The footage played clearly. Kayla stepping out, setting Emma down, taping the note, walking away. For several seconds, both of them were silent. My mother pressed her lips tight. Kayla turned her face away, unable to meet my eyes. Then Diane spoke again, grasping for ground. She was just overwhelmed. Kayla's raising a child alone. No one's helping her. You should understand. No, Mom, I can't understand someone who has time for vacations, but not one phone call. I can't understand someone who abandons her child in the cold to go to a spa. And I will never understand a mother who defends that all these years. I had never spoken so directly, but my voice didn't waver. Kayla lifted her chin. This isn't over. You'll see. She stormed off. My mother hesitated, then followed silently. The door closed, but the air was still heavy. My heart raced, but the guilt was gone. All that was left was the truth. I had chosen right. And I was ready to face whatever came next. I thought things might settle down after that clash, but what I had done wasn't the end of years of silence. It was the opening shot of a battle deeper and longer than I had ever imagined. Just 3 hours after Kayla and my mother left my door, my phone started ringing nonstop. Unknown numbers, messages filled with guilt trips, anger, threats, mixed with sobbing reproaches. Adeline, how could you shame your sister like this? Aunt Helen's voice from Missouri, whom I hadn't seen in 10 years. Sweetheart, Kayla's just overwhelmed. She just needs a break. You blew this out of proportion. A text from Uncle Alfred, who hadn't asked about me once in years. I even received a handwritten letter. No name on the envelope, delivered to my office. Inside was one sheet of paper with red ink. Don't forget, blood comes first. Outsiders will never understand. But Kayla didn't stop at late-night calls or anonymous texts. She began posting on social media, using old photos of Emma smiling in my arms as the backdrop for cryptic captions. I trusted my sister. I thought family was safe. Who knew someone I loved could take my daughter away out of petty jealousy? The posts spread like wildfire. Old high school classmates, former neighbors, even people I had never met flooded the comments. Many wrote things like, "That girl is so selfish. If you can't have kids, don't. Steal someone else's, calling CPS just to look noble. But really it's revenge." I read those lines, my heart aching and cold. I had stayed silent for so long just to protect the image of someone who never once treated me like family. And now, I was the target of attacks, simply because I dared to protect a child who couldn't speak for herself. From the day the post went viral, I started noticing strange things around my apartment. One evening, I came home after work and saw the front door lock was twisted, with scratch marks along the key slot. In the kitchen, some items were out of place: scissors in the wrong drawer, a tea tin opened. Nothing was stolen, but the sense that someone had been inside made my skin crawl. I called Frank, my landlord, a man in his 60s who lived downstairs, a former soldier. Are you sure you didn't scratch the lock yourself? He asked as he inspected it. I lock the door every morning before work, and when I come back, it's closed. But this looks like someone tried to open it. He nodded, his face hardening. I've seen marks like this before. Could be they used a universal lockpick kit, the kind sold quietly online. Not very professional, but with patience, it works. My chest tightened. Do you think I should call the police? Absolutely, and change the lock right away. I'll help you install a safer one. Don't stay alone tonight. I thanked Frank, then called Andrew. He had extended his stay in Chicago, working remotely so he could be near me after everything. When I told him, he said firmly, I'm coming over now. Less than 30 minutes later, he arrived, carrying a small tool bag, his eyes filled with worry. Are you sure this isn't just a random burglar? My closet wasn't touched. But someone deliberately moved things like they wanted me to know they could come in any time. Andrew squeezed my hand tight. From tomorrow, I'll work from here. You shouldn't be alone. The next morning, I found another envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a photo of Emma sleeping, clearly taken through my living room window the night before. No words. No return address. I vomited in the bathroom, hands shaking uncontrollably. This was no longer just intimidation. Someone had stood outside my window, close enough to watch, waiting for me not to notice. I gathered all the evidence and went to the local police station. A young officer took my report, then asked, Do you have personal conflicts with anyone recently? I reported my sister for abandoning her daughter. Now they think I've destroyed the family. He was quiet for a few seconds, then sealed the letter, logged the photo into evidence. We'll increase patrols around your block. If possible, install more cameras. And, for now, don't go anywhere alone. I thanked him, though my heart was still heavy. On the drive home, Andrew held my hand tightly. He didn't say much, but I could feel his fury in every breath. He didn't blame me for calling CPS. He understood better than anyone who had lived beside me that I had stayed silent too long, carrying burdens no younger sister should. Now I had broken that cycle. And family, the shell that once shielded me, had become the threat, but I would not bow again, not ever. That afternoon, while I was working at the dining table, the phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. I hesitated a few seconds before answering. Hello, my name is Ryan Mitchell. I'm Emma's biological father. I sat upright, my pulse quickening. How did you get my number? I got it from CPS. Margaret said I should talk to you. That you were the one who helped my little girl that night. His voice was low, weary, as if he'd repeated that introduction too many times. I was quiet for a moment, then replied softly, Then you should speak in person. These aren't things to discuss over the phone. Ryan agreed. We arranged to meet at a small cafe near the city park. When I arrived, he was already seated in the far corner, wearing a worn shirt, his face gaunt but his eyes sharp. I wasn't sure what to expect. Ryan was nothing like how Kayla had described him. In the rare times she mentioned Emma's father, she called him unstable, a junkie, a useless man. But the man before me was nothing of the sort. Thank you for coming, he said, standing to shake my hand. I nodded slightly. I'm not here for Kayla, I'm here for Emma. Ryan gave a sad smile. And I live for her too. We sat, and Ryan pulled out a weathered leather case. Inside was a thick stack of files, neatly clipped in plastic sleeves. One by one, he laid them out on the table like pieces of scrambled memory. These are the drug test results Kayla had to take when she was pregnant. These are copies of prescriptions she filled under friends' names to avoid detection. These are pawn shop receipts, the necklace her aunt gave her at 16, sold for $80. I scanned each document. None were easy to read. Every number, every signature, every hospital stamp was like a slap to the face of anyone who believed Kayla was trying to live decently. She never cared for Emma. She used her like a ticket to get welfare, government housing, sympathy from neighbors. I tried to fight for custody, but the court rejected me because her mother Diane testified. She swore Kayla was clean, stable. They believed a smooth-talking woman over a father with a record. I looked up. Ryan didn't avoid my eyes. He spoke slowly, without excuses, without trying to win favor. I was a mess once. I don't deny it. But I've been clean for 3 years. I have the certificates, the rehab records. I have a steady job at the print shop. And I have an apartment fit for raising a child. I asked quietly, "Why didn't you make all this public earlier?" "Because I believed Kayla would change." He paused. "And because I believed Emma was really her child." I froze. "What do you mean?" Ryan pulled a pale yellow envelope from the case, opened it, and unfolded a sheet of paper. At the top was the Chicago City Hospital logo. Below that was a DNA test result. Kayla had Emma by C-section. I was there that day. But weeks later, when I took Emma for her vaccinations, the nurse asked me to re-sign her records. When I looked closer, I noticed something wrong with the blood types. I tightened my grip on the coffee cup. "She's blood type AB. I'm type O. Emma is type B. Impossible." I demanded a test. And here's the result, printed clearly. The probability of biological relation between Kayla Mitchell and Emma is under 1%. "Did you report this to the hospital?" I did. But the record disappeared after. Her mother showed up, said it was an error, claimed the medical files were mistaken. 2 weeks later, I got a restraining order for allegedly threatening Kayla. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up. Since when had a child become a bargaining chip in a family? Since when was blood something to be erased with a forged signature? Ryan's eyes showed his exhaustion. "I don't care whether Kayla is the biological mother or not. I just want Emma safe, fed, warm, not left outside in the freezing night waiting for someone to open the door." I pulled Margaret's card from my wallet and slid it to him. "Contact her. Send every copy of these files. And if you need a witness, I'll be the first." Ryan gripped the card, and for the first time that meeting, he broke down. "Thank you. No one's ever believed me. Until today." I didn't answer. Because I realized I was like him, living too long in a world where everyone believed the smooth talker over the quiet fighter. But Emma deserved someone to shatter that silence. And now, it wasn't just me anymore. I thought after meeting Ryan, once every secret was written in black and white, things would finally move into the hands of the law, where numbers, records, and DNA results could speak for truth. But I underestimated Kayla and my mother. In less than a week, I began to feel eyes on me. At first, just a strange sense whenever I left my apartment, someone standing too close to be coincidence, too quiet to be random. I told Andrew. He immediately checked every camera around the building, even installed another by my bedroom window. The footage showed a man, about 50, lurking behind a tree across the street. Hands buried in his coat, his gaze fixed on my window night after night. His face hidden, but his posture clear. That patience wasn't a burglar's. I sent the video to Margaret. She urged me to file for an emergency protection order, not just against Kayla, but my mother too. "What you're facing isn't just family conflict. This is a personal safety threat." I went to the courthouse, submitted the footage, threatening texts, photos of the anonymous letter. The judge processed it quickly, and within 24 hours, the restraining order was signed. Kayla and my mother were banned from coming within 300 feet of me, from contacting me by phone, email, social media, or through a third party, but to them it was just paper. Not even 2 days later, I stopped by the supermarket to grab a few groceries for dinner. Andrew was on a work call, so I went alone. I thought in a crowded place, in broad daylight, no one would dare. I was at the produce aisle, reaching for carrots, when a reflection flickered in the glass of the refrigerated case opposite. I turned, and Kayla was standing right behind me. Her hair was tangled, dark circles under her eyes stark, lips pressed tight as if chewing something bitter. She wore a long coat, phone in her hand though the screen was dark. I stepped back instinctively, clutching the grocery basket to my chest like a makeshift shield. I just want to talk, Kayla growled. I didn't do anything wrong. Everything you're spinning is fake. You've destroyed this family. I edged aside, heading toward the exit. You're not allowed near me. This is a violation of the court order. She followed, her voice rising. Court order? You think I'm scared of a piece of paper? You think you're better just because you've never been a mother? You think you have the right to judge me? I stayed silent, forcing myself to remain calm. A store employee noticed, moving closer but not stepping in yet. I neared the checkout lanes when suddenly I was yanked back. Kayla grabbed my shoulder, ripped the basket from my hands, tomatoes and greens scattering across the floor. Don't turn your back on me when I'm talking, you fake humanitarian bitch. I stumbled. A nearby shopper intervened immediately, pulling Kayla off. Another shouted for security. Police were called right away. I didn't cry. I stood among the scattered produce, breathing hard, ears ringing. Even as security restrained her, Kayla struggled, screaming through the supermarket, "You'll regret this. Everyone will see you're a fraud, a snake pretending to be an angel." A phone camera pointed our way. I saw the lens glint. Of course, someone was recording. In a world where everyone carried a smartphone, truth and scandal were only a few taps apart. Police arrived within 10 minutes. I handed them a copy of the restraining order. They cuffed Kayla in front of everyone. As she was led away, she turned to me, her voice no longer angry but pleading, "Emma is my daughter. You have no right to take her from me." I said nothing. There was nothing left to say to that woman. Police took my statement on site and confirmed the store's surveillance footage would be secured as evidence. That evening, Margaret called after hearing from the precinct. "Ms. Walker, I've received the report. This is critical evidence in processing Ryan's emergency custody petition. With a witnessed assault and a restraining order violation, the chances of Kayla losing her visitation rights temporarily are very high." I sat by the window, listening to the wind whistle through the blinds. My spine chilled. Not from fear, from bitterness. A woman may give birth to a child, but that doesn't make her fit to be a mother. And sometimes cruelty isn't in a slap or a curse, but in the cold abandonment of a fragile life while playing the victim for the world to see. I closed my laptop and walked into the living room, where Andrew sat wrapped in a blanket, replaying a video clip from the supermarket that an anonymous account had just sent. "What do you think?" I asked. He turned, eyes red. "I think that woman never loved that child, but you do." On the day of the hearing, the sky hung heavy, gray clouds pressing over the city. I sat on the bench outside the courtroom, clutching a thick file folder, my shoulder resting lightly against Andrew's silent, steady as stone. Ryan arrived a few minutes later, wearing a white shirt carefully ironed despite its age, hair combed neatly, his face gaunt but his eyes unwavering. He sat beside me, offering only a nod, the quiet acknowledgement of people long disbelieved. My attorney, Ms. Morales, was in her 50s, silver hair cropped short, sharp eyes, and a clear voice. When we first met, she had said one thing: "We don't need to prove Kayla is terrible. We just need to prove she's unfit to parent." Court convened at 9 a.m. Across the aisle sat Kayla and my mother, Diane. Mom wore a pale gray cardigan, hair pinned tight, her calm facade intact as always. Kayla wore a navy dress, makeup flawless, lips painted deep red. She looked almost like a polished version of someone I had never known. The judge, Miss Hughes, was a white woman in her 60s with cropped silver hair and thin, metal glasses. She flipped through the files, read the summary, then lifted her stern gaze across the room. "We are here to resolve custody of the minor child, Emma Mitchell. Petitioner Ryan Mitchell. Respondent, Kayla Mitchell. Interested party, Adeline Walker." Kayla's attorney, Jason Grant, a sharp-tongued man in his early 40s, launched first. "Your Honor, we will show that my client, though struggling, is a devoted single mother, while Ms. Walker is exploiting the situation for financial gain. She is single, childless, inexperienced, and her motive is to control the government aid attached to this minor. I felt Andrew shift beside me, whispering, "Let them play their hand. Then you show the truth." Ms. Morales stood calmly. "Your Honor, we will present records, witnesses, photos, and video showing Ms. Kayla Mitchell repeatedly abandoned the child, engaged in violence, and abused substances. And through certified DNA results, we will prove she is not Emma's biological mother." The room rippled. Kayla snapped toward my mother. Diane's lips pressed white. The DNA results were Ms. Morales' strongest card, time to crush any defense Kayla built. I testified first, recounting everything. The times Kayla left Emma with me, the camera footage at 4:31 a.m., when Emma was abandoned in 20-degree weather, photos of bruises on her wrist, receipts for ointments, CPS nutrition, and psychological reports. Jason tried to counter, insinuating jealousy. "Do you feel disappointed you haven't had children? Did you see Emma as a child to fill that void?" I met his gaze. "I'm not filling a void. I did what any adult should when a child is left abandoned and hurt." Ms. Morales wasted no time. She submitted DNA reports from 3 certified sources: the city hospital, the county forensics lab, and a licensed private lab. Based on genetic comparison, Emma has no biological relation to Ms. Kayla Mitchell. The match rate is 0.3%, too low to claim maternal relation. Meanwhile, the match between Emma and Ryan Mitchell is 99.98%. The room went silent. Kayla shook her head, lips stiff. My mother shot to her feet, only to be ordered down by court security. Ms. Morales pressed on. "We also have testimony from medical staff present at the birth, and evidence of records altered after Ms. Diane Mitchell met with the hospital. This obstructed paternity verification and cost Ms. Mitchell custody for 2 years." Kayla sprang up. "I raised her from birth. She's mine. I don't need a test to prove it." The judge struck her gavel. "The respondent will maintain order. All statements must come through counsel." It didn't take long. After reviewing every record, CPS reports, medical testimony, and evidence gathered, Judge Hughes granted Ryan Mitchell full custody of Emma. She ordered Kayla into rehab and psychological supervision before any petition for visitation could even be filed. I sat gripping the bench, not in triumph but in deep relief. Emma, a child who should never have been dragged into power games and illusions, was finally given back to the person who truly cared. I glanced at Kayla, collapsed with her face in her hands. My mother bowed her head, silent. No one rose, no one met my eyes. But I didn't need them, because truth, however painful, was the only foundation strong enough to protect a child, and I would never let anyone erase that again. I stepped out of the courthouse into a drizzle, raindrops streaking the pavement like washing away old scars. Beside me, Ryan walked quietly, clutching the fresh custody papers. Neither of us spoke. Silence was enough. Something had changed forever. Days later, local papers picked it up. Not sensational, but enough to spread online. Single mother convicted after abandoning toddler in near freezing cold. Below was a photo of Kayla in handcuffs, dazed as she was let out of the supermarket. Some articles mentioned me as the brave aunt who called CPS. I didn't care. What froze me was seeing my mother's photo on the inside page, captioned, "Mother of defendant under investigation for complicity and welfare fraud." I sat frozen at the screen. Part of me had thought she'd escape, like always. But not this time. Welfare investigators uncovered she had collected benefits in Kayla's name for 3 years, knowing her daughter relapsed and wasn't raising Emma. They reopened Kayla's rehab file from 2019, where Diane had signed off that her daughter completed the program, though she quit after 3 weeks. Child support funds were funneled into a joint account in both their names, totaling over $23,000 in 2 years. She was summoned to civil court the following week. I wasn't there, but Margaret later described the heavy atmosphere. My mother didn't deny it. She admitted, I just wanted to help my daughter through a hard time. I didn't think it would be this serious. But the judge's eyes held no sympathy. Years of cover-up directly led to a child being harmed, left unprotected. Misplaced mercy can become cruelty. Diane was sentenced to 3 years probation, ordered to repay the fraudulent funds, and complete 200 hours of community service. She was also barred from contacting Emma for 5 years, unless given written consent by Ryan. I don't know what she felt when she heard the sentence. All I received was a small envelope in the mail, inside a short handwritten note. "You've always been stubborn." But maybe I was wrong to think that way. No apology, no explanation. Just a dangling sentence, dropped into the silence of everything left unsaid. As for Kayla, she was being held in the county jail awaiting her criminal trial. The charges included child abandonment, emotional and physical abuse, repeated violations of the restraining order, and public disturbance. The final hearing lasted nearly 6 hours. Ryan was there, and I was also called as an additional witness. They replayed the supermarket footage, the video from my doorstep, and even the threatening messages Kayla had sent me. Her lawyer tried to defend her, citing unstable mental health, the pressure of being a single mother, and her history of substance dependency, but the jury didn't agree. "This woman doesn't need pity," one juror said. "She needs to learn responsibility." Kayla was sentenced to 18 months in prison and 2 years of probation afterward. Throughout the trial, she stayed mostly silent. Only once, when given her final statement, she looked directly at me and asked, "Are you happy now?" "I've lost my child, my mother, my whole life, and you call that justice?" I answered slowly, "I don't need to be happy. I just need Emma to live." After the trial, some relatives from my mother's side, those who had pretended to stay neutral, began cutting ties. Aunt Helen unfriended me on social media. Uncle Alfred called once, only to say, "You did the right thing, but your rightness tore the whole family apart." I didn't argue. I was used to being seen as the one who disrupted order. But that so-called order had tormented a voiceless child for 2 long years. If sacrificing surface-level peace gave Emma the chance to truly live, I would accept all the criticism in the world. Ryan kept his word. He sent me weekly updates, photos of Emma in preschool, a video of her singing "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," a crayon card with a big round sun, and 3 people holding hands. She called them Dad, Aunt Adi, and Uncle Andrew. I printed it out and pinned it to the fridge. Sometimes I stood there for a long while, in the middle of ordinary mornings with coffee and sunlight through the blinds, realizing some wounds don't need healing. It's enough to know they no longer bleed. And, for me, that was enough to go on living without regret. That morning the sky was clear, sunlight soft, neither too bright nor too faint, as if nature itself wished to share in a quiet joy just beginning. I stood behind the white silk curtain, looking out at the small garden behind the church where the ceremony would take place. Wildflowers arranged carefully by Andrew and me, strings of lights hung low enough to glow at dusk without being showy. No loud music, no lavish gown. We only wanted a simple, intimate gathering with the people our hearts trusted. Andrew walked in holding a bouquet of lavender, my favorite. He smiled, his eyes gentle the way they always were when he listened without interrupting. "Most of the guests are here," he said softly. "Emma's running around outside, insisting she gets to be the candy girl." I laughed. "As long as she doesn't hand candy to the priest." I stepped out, wearing a knee-length white dress, no train, no elaborate lace. But what stopped me in that moment was Emma, in a pale yellow princess dress, standing in the grass, her eyes shining like morning sun. She squealed when she saw me, "Aunt Eddie, you're so pretty, just like in the cartoons I watch." I bent down, opening my arms to catch her hug. Emma wrapped herself around my neck, kissed my cheek, then whispered, "Don't go away, okay? I love you." I held her tight, silent. Not because of the sweetness of her words, but because of the purity behind them. A child who once lived in fear could now speak love to someone not bound by blood. In that moment, every doubt in me dissolved. The ceremony was warm. Ryan stood beside Emma, holding her hand firmly like a true father. In the soft afternoon light, Andrew and I exchanged vows before the ones who mattered not for blood ties, but for the choice to stay, to protect, no matter how harsh life could be. Afterward, everyone gathered around a long wooden table outside, sharing food Andrew and I had prepared early that morning. No servers, just laughter, clinking silverware, children playing. Emma lingered close, sometimes looking up to ask, "Aunt Adi, after the wedding, are we a family?" I smoothed her hair and whispered, "Family isn't always about blood. Family is where you're loved, safe, and always have someone waiting for you." She tilted her head thoughtfully, then nodded like a little grown-up. "Then you and Uncle Andrew are my family. Daddy too. That means I have lots of people who love me, right?" I smiled softly, my chest tightening with indescribable emotion. I had lost so much faith in blood ties, the image of a family I once clung to. But losing those illusions let me see clearly who truly stood for me, for a child innocent of anything but being born into the wrong hands. Ryan walked over, wineglass in hand, his voice rough but sincere. "Thank you for not turning away when everyone wanted you silent. Without you, Emma would still be living in fear." I answered without hesitation, "You're the brave one. I just did what anyone should have done." We clinked glasses. In the distance, I saw my mother, Diane, standing quietly on the street behind the fence, peeking in. She didn't dare come closer, didn't offer blessings, didn't bring flowers. Just stood there, her gaze wavering between anger and regret. I didn't look away, didn't call her over. I simply stood still, then turned back, holding Emma's hand as we returned to the table. Kayla was still serving her sentence. According to Ryan's lawyer, she hadn't once asked to see Emma since the trial. No letters, no messages, not even to her own mother. Maybe she still carried the bitterness of someone who felt abandoned by the world. But what she never understood was that the world doesn't abandon anyone. It simply reflects back what we choose to give. I had once blamed, raged, grieved, and ached, believing I had destroyed a family. But now, seeing Emma laugh among people who loved her with their whole hearts, I understood the most important truth. Family isn't about who shares your blood, but about who chooses to stand beside you when everything turns dark. And I chose to build that kind of family. A place without screaming, without bruises, without words that shatter a child's heart. Each day in the small home Andrew and I shared, with Emma often running over to play, we stitched torn pieces into something more beautiful. Even if my mother Diane remained in denial, even if Kayla never grasped what love truly meant, I didn't need them anymore. I had chosen a new life, a healthy family, a home where every child is cherished as Emma is cherished every single day. Have you ever faced the choice between blood and peace? Between keeping a family only for appearance or walking away to build a home that truly means something? I've made my choice. And though the road hasn't been easy, I have no regrets. Because each time I see Emma smile, each morning I wake in a house free of shouting, each time I hold the hand of the man who loves and respects me, I am certain I was not wrong. And what about you? After everything you've heard, if you were me, would you walk away from bonds that feel impossible to break, to protect a child, to protect yourself? Share your thoughts with me. I truly want to hear from those who face the hard choice between what's right and what's familiar, because maybe it's in those stories we find each other's courage and compassion. And if you'd like to stay with me for more stories, small slices of life where family isn't always perfect, but always worth reflecting on, don't forget to follow the channel.